think of, to be perfectly honest. He's been with Volvo for many, many years over here in Britain, knows the circuit extremely well, has obviously made that count this weekend, because as you said earlier, the Volvo's going much better here than it has at any of the other touring car races so far this year.
Yeah, the Volvo really struggling for pace, but struggling even more so the other manufacturer, SEAT, and they may be getting a break because the FIA have allowed changes to the rear axle mountings. They have now, or not rear axle mountings, but rear axle rules that will allow manufacturers without a sufficiently usable rear axle to design and build a purpose-built racing one as long as it's mounted in the position of the original, in the same manner of the original. And basically the problem seems to be with the SEAT that the rear axle is too flexible and just will not keep the tyres doing what they should do, won't maintain geometry, which makes it almost impossible to set up. And that seems to be certainly going their way. One of the things that was questioned as well is whether we will move from a standing start to a rolling start. And you might think, well, the obvious reason for that is that the front-wheel drive teams want to rid the rear-wheel drive cars of any chance of having good starts against them. The other underlying cause for it really, David, is the fear that traction control might somehow find its way into these cars unexpectedly and unnoticed, and if you have a rolling start, traction control tends to be a little bit less of a factor than if you're getting away from a standing start.
I think a lot of it's to do with cost, because if you're going to start and have things like traction control, that's very expensive to do, and we don't want to bring expense into this championship or these touring car championships. Everything must be cost effective, so try and keep the cost down. That's their way of, the officials' way of looking at it. If we make a rolling start, then there's no need for such a thing to happen, to be perfectly honest. But you know, they've made one or two little ideas. Somebody wanted some larger brakes for the cars, but that's been said no to for various reasons. But all these people, when they ask for something, they don't ask for it for the good of their health. They're asking it because they know it'll be an advantage to them at some point or another. It's up to the officials to decide, is it good for the championship or is it not good for the championship. Having got rid of or trying to make rolling starts for the future, yes, that will try and ballast up or equal up the start between the front-wheel drive and the rear-wheel drive cars. But at the moment, the rear-wheel drive cars are more heavier than the front-wheel drive cars. So maybe if they get rid of the standing starts, the rear-wheel drive cars may ask for the reduction in their weight. So while some of these rules have come out, I'm sure they will not be finalised, and there'll be a few more alterations to be made before we start next year.
Seems likely. Certainly the most important part of your touring car championship is the arguing you do with the rule makers before the car ever gets to the drawing board. Andy Priaulx going through shot there. We're riding on board with Jörg Müller, and Jörg, as he said, the only lead BMW at the moment without any weight ballast. In front of him, Duncan Heisman and Paolo Roberti, the independents, Roberto Colciago and Rickard Rydell, and then Jörg and Dirk Müller. And Jörg Müller really must have a good chance of winning from 5th place on the grid. Andy Priaulx, well, he will certainly want to avoid any damage. I think the damage, not entirely sure whether it was from contact that he had made or just debris he had run over, because there was certainly contact aplenty in the opening race. So behind the top 6 then, Larini and Tarquini 7th and 8th, who were 2nd and 1st respectively in race 1. Then Tavano and Genet, Giovanardi way back there with Andre Coto, Diefenbacher and Eric Cairol. Then the non-finishers, Andy Priaulx, Balzan, Sardelli and Coronel, and Garcia and Francia, who collided so dramatically at McLean's in race 1, will not take the start in race 2. The cars wrecked beyond any chance of getting sorted. So red lights will come on. They've had the 5-second board, and quick change again away, very slow indeed away, Roberto Colciago and Rickard Rydell, and whoa, there goes Jörg Müller. Is he going to be in the lead by the first corner? No, he's not, but he will be second. He's ahead of Paolo Roberti and right behind Heisman. And Tarquini shoved off on the outside. Championship leader in the gravel out of race 2. David Leslie, big blow for him. Andy Priaulx right in the middle of the action there, getting a rub from the Alfa Romeo as well, behind Coto and Diefenbacher.
Yes, nothing slows down in this championship. It's always giving a push here and a shove there to try and get through and make the best opportunity, but that's not good for the championship leader to be knocked off in the very first corner. I'm sure there'll be something said about that later in the steward's office.
Well, the race is too short for them to actually do anything during the race. Lock up from Heisman, and although he'd like to win this, his focus, as we've said before, is the Independence Trophy, and he really, with a year older car than Jörg Müller, must know that the writing's on the wall. It would be much better for him to try and get out the way early. Now let's have a look back, see what we can see. That is Giovanardi. Yep. up behind Tarquini, and that's why Gio was smoking down the hill. That, to me, David, would be lots of videotape to the steward's office.
Yes, I'm sure we've seen the picture from the back of Tarquini's car there, and I've got a funny feeling there was a camera in Giovanardi's car as well as the cameras on the outside of the circuit, so no doubt that'll be ongoing for some time.
I think so. So Jörg Müller leads, Heisman alongside him, Rydell up the inside. This is fantastic stuff. Well, the start of the GT race, the start of race 1 of the touring cars were fabulous, and race 2 going the same way. Rydell with Ruberti wheel to wheel with Ruberti on the inside line. Dirk Müller there in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th position, and right behind him is that Nicola Larini? No, it's not with the big black bumpers, surely, at the back. We'll have to have a look in a minute.
You can see Giovanardi coming down at the back there with the smoke still pouring off his wheels. No overtaking into the first corner. The yellow flags are out because of this. The car taken off. You can see the marks on the door of Tarquini's car. It's right in the middle of the door where he's been hit and pushed off into the gravel there.
Well, there was no doubt there was contact between the two of them, and it entirely depends, I guess, on what Giovanardi's viewpoint was, and more importantly perhaps the view from his camera, whether he was given the squeeze from the inside and had nowhere else to go and just couldn't avoid hitting Tarquini. I mean, I don't think there's any bad blood between them. I don't see what purpose it would have served Giovanardi to have punted him off in the race like that, and potentially damaged his own car, which he has done, because he's now being passed up into Coppice by Andy Prio. So Giovanardi having a bad weekend. Maybe it was just simply a little bit of bitterness, and he was going to make sure that Tarquini had a bad weekend as well. Well, Prio didn't get past Giovanardi in the back of this queue, but at the moment it's Jörg Müller, Duncan Heisman, then in third place Paolo Ruberti, Ricard Rydell fourth, Dirk Müller fifth, Nicola Larini is the sixth place Alfa Romeo, and seventh place Andre Cotto. Now the little Honda Civic Type R, David, seemingly going very well now. They're really starting to get to grips with that car after what, nearly 18 months of trying.
Yes, the car was designed and built by Yas originally, and it really has struggled, but I see Yas is here in force this weekend to run that car, and the two little Hondas have done much better this weekend than they have done in the last 18 months since they've started this championship.
Giovanardi and Prio we're watching there, and Prio going out very wide into Goddard's to get a good fast run out onto the straight, dives to the inside. Here we go, on board with Andy Prio, down into Redgate. He's done this umpteen times in British F3, in Formula Renault and everything else, and he gets the move done. It's a real classic, but you have to sell the dummy or have much better drive, and fortunately no yellow flags that time, and undoubtedly the team were on the radio telling him on the lap that the yellow flags had been withdrawn and a move there would be allowable without being penalised, and he made full use of that. There is Rydell then in fifth place, chasing Jörg Müller, Dirk Müller, I was right the first time, Jörg Müller out front, and Paolo Ruberti really hanging on, as is Duncan Heisman, to the unballasted BMW in the lead, but great scrap right here behind them.
Yes, the Works BMW there, number 43, just managed to keep everybody behind them, but behind them is this group of four cars, two Alfas, a Honda and a Volvo, and they really are going at it as hard as they can. It's one of these corners coming up shortly. They're going to touch and they're not all going to get round.
Oh, wow! Colciago's been playing Toka touring cars, the absolutely patented quick way across the gravel that slows you right down. It looks so good, but it never works. Well, the start of that was Larini shoving his way inside Rydell. He pushed Rydell wide, then, as the number one car slides into the hairpin there, pushed Rydell wide and got past. So too did Andre Cotto, and then Colciago, David, was trying to do them all in one go across the gravel traps. He just completely misjudged it, didn't he?
He did, but at the end of it, he's come out in front. And that is basically corner cutting, getting an advantage of something you shouldn't have done. And again, I'm pretty sure there should be another sort of report going into the steward saying, look, he left the circuit, he cut the corner off completely, and he gained an advantage from it. And he's getting advantage not only from passing the Honda and the Volvo, also from his teammate Nicola Larini.
It was a very well rescued bid gone wrong, definitely, because he got it wrong a long way into the braking area for the Fogarty Zesters and just went straight across without even bothering to try and negotiate them. You're right. Should be a penalty. Don't think it will be though, but I think you're right. Dirk Müller in trouble here.
Yeah, I think when he arrived down that chicane, he was down the inside, he just wasn't going to stop. If it stayed on the tarmac, he would have had a collision with somebody. he took the easy opportunity, took to the grass before he even got to the corner on the inside, across the inside of the grass, then across the circuit, across the grass, back onto the circuit to try and stop an accident. But oh dear.
Big oversteering moment for Dirk Muller there, and he got onto the easy dry, which is down on a big slick of oil, and then the slide, which was holdable, suddenly became completely unholdable. He's spinning the wheels there in the gravel. He may well get out, but that will mean another change among the points leaders. At the moment we have Gabriele Tarquini out of the race. We now have the second man in the points, Dirk Muller, out of the race. Jörg Muller leads it. He's third in points after round 9. Andy Priaulx fourth in points, we've just seen go by, and Giovanardi really struggling as well. The BMWs are burning up their rear tyres very badly indeed here. We've seen Dirk Muller and Giovanardi really sliding around a lot. Priaulx made very short work of him, right onto the tail of Koto, and this is now a 5-car train behind Nicola Larini.
Yeah, this train with the 2 Alphas in front now has Andy Priaulx right on the back of it. Now he's come from the very back, working his way through, and while Colgiaggio and Larini at the front with the 2 Alfa Romeos, I'm pretty sure that Andy thinks that he can get himself up there. He's managed to pass the other cars in front of him, including some very quick BMWs, to get himself there. And I think it'll take him a couple of laps, but I'm pretty sure he'll be in the middle of that 5-car bunch fairly shortly.
Right, let's have a look at Colciago. Well, this isn't why he's got the drive-through penalty, and look, he only just held it together on the oil. Dirk Muller went off on the oil there. Colciago's drive-through is because he drove through the Fogarty's S's without making the remotest effort to actually use the grey bits that everybody else regards as the racing medium. Andy Priaulx right behind them then, and Dirk Muller in the pits with, I don't know what the problem was, maybe he had a slow puncture or something. Yeah, look, they're changing the left rear, maybe the wheel was loose. I don't know, whatever it was, he had a big oversteering slide as he got drive just past, just back from here, out of Coppice Corner, and then onto the loose, onto the oil, and he was away and gone. Well, the more traditional line being taken by Colciago there. Larini, Rydell, Andre Koto, the McCowan driver in the little Honda, holding off Andy Priaulx, but for how long? Doesn't quite get through. Priaulx in 8th place then, so with a point at least from this weekend, which will be less than he would have hoped for. Dirk Muller back out of the pits now and onto the racetrack, but a long way behind. It's his namesake and teammate Jörg Muller who leads at the moment. We'll be back with more live in just a second.
With LG Digitally Yours.
Jörg Muller leading after 6 laps at Donington Park, round 10 of the FIA European Touring Car Championship, the 5th LG Super Racing weekend, live on Eurosport. Martin Haven and David Leslie watching the progress of this one. David, Jörg Muller out front here, no success ballast at all on his car. Roberto Colciago comes out of the pits from 4th place after a drive-through penalty for missing comprehensively the chicane or the Fogarty's S's. But with no success ballast and a chance to get into the lead, Jörg Muller's really capitalised. He's going for maximum points here, and he's got them pretty comfortably in the bag unless the car breaks on him.
Yeah, he's well aware there. He can take it nice and easy. He should have the best car out there. Behind him is 2 privateers. One of them a BMW, one an Alfa Romeo with Heisman and Roberti. Now those 2 are going extremely well indeed. In fact, they're keeping themselves away from the Alfa Romeos that are behind.
Yeah, and this is part of the great battle that's right behind Nicola Larini. Larini, Rydell, Koto, we're on board with Andy Priaulx in 7th place, and here they come. There is Larini, there is Rydell, and Priaulx inside Koto. This time he's got it done. Yes, he has. Yet no sounds of contact. He's through safely into the Fogarty's S's, and a little wave there to Koto to say thank you for the racing room, because he knows that Koto could just have turned across the corner onto him and they would both have been out. But Koto in a slightly more sensible mode than that, and the little, well, I guess little Honda Civic Type R is having its best race of 18 months. Certainly it's been in the series for all of last year and this, and has never been anything like this far up the order towards the end of a race. So I think they're probably just you know, looking to get a finish in the points here.
Yeah, what's surprising, we were looking at the timing screens at the same time as watching the race, and the car that got knocked off on the first corner, Gabriele Tarquini, got towed away to a place of safety, and he's obviously sat in the car until it was towed away. He started up and joined the race again, because he is actually running again, last and 3 laps down, but he's back somewhere on the circuit.
Well, that's a very unusual way to go. I wonder exactly what Gabrielli's got in mind. I really don't want to see him cruising around slowly until Giovanardi hoves up in his mirrors and then punts him off in retribution, but stranger things have happened in touring cars, certainly.
No, Gabriel is not going slowly. He's the quickest car out on the circuit at the moment. He's out there driving as hard as he can. Admittedly, so far back that unless an awful lot of people fall off and run into each other, he won't score any points. But being a racing driver that he is, and a very likeable racing driver, he's out there putting on a very good show for everybody that's here on this wonderful day at Donington.
And also wailing the nuts off his Alfa Romeo, which has got to be good fun in itself now that he's calmed down after being rammed into the gravel. So absolutely no reason why not to. Unfortunately, no point for fastest lap or anything, which is a shame, because that would be quite entertaining. And maybe that's something that they could look at in the championship, a point for fastest lap as well, because it's not necessarily the race winner or one of the lead drivers that's going to get that. You could get a guy like Paolo Roberti here having the fastest lap of the race, or one of the independents, Tom Coronel or Duncan Heisman could get it, or one of the other guys. And I think that's maybe another way that you can look at helping to even up the balance and to muddy up the championship waters a little. One thing that the Success Ballast system has meant this year is that coming into the midway stage of the season, the championship leader was only 4 points ahead of second place, and 10 points covered the top 5 drivers. Now that's only one win, and as we've seen here, wins even from pole position with the fastest car aren't necessarily easy to come by. So certainly at the moment the Success Ballast system, in my view, even though the drivers don't see it as entirely fair, and nothing ever is, I still think it's working largely the way it should do.
Yes, it's working for the championship as a whole. But it's not just a Success Ballast that makes a difference. It's that being able to get a good start, being able to get through the first couple of laps without having some damage, without being knocked into the gravel trap somewhere or another. And remember, in the second race, they turn the first 8 cars around. So if you finish first in the first race, you're starting from 8th position in the second race. And it's that makes it very exciting, that puts all these cars that are very quick, and just turns them around just a little bit so that everybody has to overtake when it comes to the second race. We can see here Jörg Müller's done a really good job. He's got himself through to the front, but fantastic drive in second and third by the 2 privateers, Duncan Heisman and Paolo Roberti. Now these 2 are staying in second and third, and Larini, Works' car in fourth, is not being able to catch him. And then again, Rydell, which is basically a privateer Volvo, is in fifth, right behind Larini. So the privateers are having a fantastic second race here at Donington this weekend.
Yeah, they really are, because as you say, second and third are not being dropped. They were 2.5 seconds behind Jörg Müller about 5 laps ago, and they still are 2.5, or 2 seconds behind him, in fact, 2.1. So obviously he's modified his pace because he knows there's no challenge from behind. He's maintaining the gap, but equally, as you say, you point out Nicola Larini on pole position, fastest man in qualifying, can't catch the privateer BMW and Alfa Romeo, and it's not because he's constantly defending anymore, because Rydell's not quite close enough to be attacking all the time, but certainly Larini has been at the head of a very frenetic battle with himself, Rydell, Andy Priaulx, Andre Coto, and a couple of others being involved in it as well. Now that's sort of starting to settle down a little bit. But as you said rightly, David, not only the problems of working your way through traffic if you have got a lighter, faster car and you're starting further back, particularly in the reverse second grid, or as with Jörg Müller, if you have a problem in qualifying and start at the back of the field. Jörg said himself on the grid, didn't he? I've really got to take my time and not rush any passing manoeuvres, even though there was only 3 quick cars in front of him, 3 or 4 quick cars in front of him. He said, no, I've really got to take my time, he said, because most importantly, not obviously in the back of his mind, I don't want to damage the car, but also most importantly, he's seen, or has probably been aware of, a couple of fairly erratic driving standards decisions this weekend, and the last thing you want, having eased your way through and then have somebody close the door on you a little bit and make contact, as here between Rydell and Larini, the last thing you want is then to go on and win the race at a canter and somebody in a blazer pull you in and say, well, listen, old boy, it's not really cricket, is it? Which has happened at least once this weekend for reasons that best known to the stewards themselves.
We've seen a very good overtaking manoeuvre by Rickard Rydell down the inside of Nicola Larini. He managed to get just his nose in front as he went into the hairpin down on the Melbourne loop there. And once he was on the inside, he knew the inside line. All he had to do then was use all the road on the way out. He did that, give Larini a little bit of a bump so that he had nowhere to go except onto the grass. just to make sure he was in front when he came up the hill towards the last corner of the Goddard hairpin and onto start and finish.
Yeah, now see, we were talking earlier on, weren't we, about not just knowing the track but having really intimate knowledge of all its nuances, and maybe that might be why Tarquini went so well with big ballast as Giovanardi comes into the pits, and also why Rydell is getting the most out of the car here. And what Rydell did there was he got down tight into the apex, and then instead of turning out as tight as he could, he went straight across to the curb. Now Larini tried to turn back up the hill, thinking that Rydell would be turning out tighter than he actually was, but Rydell, as you say, completely blocked the road. Now, it meant that Rydell was slower up the hill than ultimately he could have been, but importantly, so was Larini, because he was right behind him, and Larini had to get out of the throttle and take a second bite at getting round the corner. So though he didn't run into him, he made sure that Larini couldn't get any advantage back out of that hairpin.
And the upside of that is that they've two have slowed each other down a little bit, allowing this car, Andy Prio's car, just to catch them up a little bit. He had been dropped back a little bit from them and was looking very much settled in that position and not able to challenge, but with the two of them holding each other up just a little bit with that manoeuvre here on the last lap, that allowed Andy just that little bit space to come a little bit closer. He just needs another little confrontation between the two of them. He could be right on their boot lid, and once he's there, then he can hassle them and try and make a move.
Well, I've got to say, with Nicola Larini right behind Ricard Rydell, two of them in front-wheel drive cars with the tyres and possibly the brakes going away, I should think the chance of another wheel-to-wheel kerfuffle between them is very likely indeed. Closing stages of the race, but let's go down to the pits, catch up with Fabrizio Giovanardi.
Fabrizio Giovanardi, can you explain the accident that happened at the beginning?
In the beginning of the second race, you say? Yes, I think normal accident because I was in the middle of the one BMW and the Alfa Romeo. The Alfa Romeo tried to close the corner, but I was inside. It was impossible. I touched him, and I'm really sorry because he went out. But
and now you think the car is not repairable?
No. But there is only 2 laps, so it's better to stop here. Next weekend.
Thank you.
Well, let's have a look again, and there, sure enough, inside him, the number 43 car. And David, you can't say that that was a cynical elimination. He was a car's width away from the curbs, and Gabrielli had to turn in at some stage to try and get round, and equally, Fabrizio couldn't go any tighter into the corner. It was a 3-into-1 doesn't go, and unfortunately, as ever, the one on the outside got rolled off.
That's what happens in motorsport. Everyone wants to be the first corner first. There's 3 of them tried to do that at one time there. BMW on the very inside was there. He wasn't going to go anywhere. Giovanardi was squashed in the middle, and he was simply a passenger. And as you said, as Tarquini turned in, he was the one that came off worst out of the 3.
Dear oh dear, Rydell's car not wanting to turn at all at the bottom of the Melbourne hairpin there, and looking increasingly wayward under brakes as he turns in. But then I'm sure he's feeling that very much more than we're noticing it, and is very much aware of that. And as he comes across the line in 4th place, still having by far and away his best race of the season so far, and where better a place to have it, I think, than at Donington Park. Maybe at Anderstorp, I guess, next time.
Now, Ricard has probably raced more at Donington Park than he has at Anderstorp in Sweden, where he comes from. But this is where he's been. He won the British Touring Car Championship here a few years ago for Volvo, and as we said earlier, it's a circuit knows well, and actually made good use of it here to get himself up now into 4th place overall. But again, as I said before, in 2nd and 3rd place you've got Duncan Heisman and Paolo Roberti with the 2 privateer cars, and I think that is fantastic for the championship for that to happen.
Well, it also shows, doesn't it, I think, how seriously the Privateers, the Independence Championship is being taken, that the cars are now at a standard that they can match the best that the factory-driven teams can do, lap for lap, race by race. And as you say, absolutely right, Heisman and Roberti, 1st and 2nd, they were 7th and 8th in the first race, because they're not ultimately as quick as the fast guys on a qualifying lap on a brand new set of tyres. Maybe they just don't have quite the number of tyres to throw at it. But here, well, Jörg Müller hasn't been pushed, so he's been able to pace himself, but absolutely correct to say that Larini couldn't catch and pass Heisman or Roberti, and they have done a superb job. And I'm sure that both their teams and the other independents are now starting to see more and more freedom of parts coming through from the factory to make their cars as equal as they can to the factory teams. Out of the final corner then, it's victory for Jörg Müller. So from the depths, get across the line, Jörg, remember Monaco. Goodness me. from the depths of depression after qualifying, where he bins the car in a little bit of an unnecessary contact with Tom Coronel in the damp conditions. Oh, hello. I think that Diefenbacher has just picked up an extra place at the end of the race there, going by Tavano. But anyway, Jörg Müller, from depression and a wrecked car, rewards his mechanics who worked all night to get it fixed for Sunday morning's warm-up by not only finishing strongly in race 1 from last to 5th, but going on to win race 2. And David's mathematics and mine, let's see, Jörg Müller before had 41 points, he now has 51 points. He's 3 points behind championship leader Gabriele Tarquini, and that has closed everything up a lot, because they are the biggest scorers. Nicola Larini, no, he doesn't close enough to get it. So Jörg Müller moves into 2nd place in the championship from 4th, coming to Donington Park, and Andy Priaulx in 4th from that 2nd race. Again, will get good points. Dirk Müller, the loser in this race, he has been the Schnitzer driver who's had the better fortune in terms of good luck this year, and that seems to have turned around here. But the top 8, including Salvatore Tavano and Andre Cotto, David Leslie, both Honda Civic Type Rs in the points, and that is by far and away their best performance this season. So that's a real boost for them, and a real boost as well for Rickard Rydell. So on all sorts of fronts, away from the main focus of the championship leaders, some very good race performances this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I think so many people have moved forward this weekend, both in the Independence Cup and in some of the works teams have been able to just move their cars forward and feel that they've got a really good weekend, got some good results this weekend. It hasn't been good for everybody. Gabriele Tarquini had a fantastic first race, got a pole position and a win out of it, a second off the grid and a win out of it, give an extra 10 points. And as we've seen now, just then, Jörg Müller, who smashed the car in practice and won that race, he got some good points out of that as well. So everybody's been moving forward.
And in the end, Andy Priaulx as well came home in the points in race 2 in 5th position, so that's pretty much as he could have expected with the 40 kilos of ballast that he was carrying. And as the leader peels into the pits, Andy Priaulx in the Team BMW Great Britain car right behind him. Müller, Heisman, Rydell, your podium finishers. Larini, Priaulx, Cotto, Tavano and Ruberti, the rest of the point scorers. So Frank Diefenbacher just outside in the Seat in 9th place. Marc Genet down in 12th place. Disappointing weekend though for the yellow cars. The Spaniards will have to do some more work on their medium and high speed corner setup. That really seems to be the problem here. Didn't bite them at Barcelona as badly as they thought it would. Look, there's the Volvo team ready to give a big wave to Rickard. That's a big boost for them indeed. And there goes Heisman into the finish area. In fact, it wasn't Heisman at all, was it? That was Tom Coronel's car. Here is Duncan Heisman's car coming into the winner's circle. He is rightly pleased with himself, so he should be. So too the Carly Motorsport team. So that's it anyway from the European Touring Car